I am very happy to declare myself as one of the 10 remaining Sam & Max fans out there. For those of you unaware of who Sam & Max are, which is probably most of you, they were created by Steve Purcell and ran as a comic book series for a while. While they have plenty of fans that came from reading those, they're mainly known for their point-and-click adventure games, specifically the first one made by LucasArts back in the day. For me personally, I played Telltale's Sam & Max point-and-click trilogy almost 3 years ago. You see, I used to play a lot of point-and-click games when I was little, and I wanted to get back into them, and Sam & Max looked right up my alley. Needless to say, they didn't disappoint. They are my favorite point-and-click adventure games ever, with great scenarios, clever and fun, albeit sometimes frustrating puzzles, and hilarious dialogue. Ever since I first played those games, I've mentioned the series a lot on my channel, tried other point-and-click games, and even played and reviewed Sam & Max Hit the Road, their very first game, as I mentioned earlier. Now you see, I've always wanted to do a review on each of the games in the Telltale trilogy, but I never knew when I'd get around to doing that. Not only that, but if you keep up with my videos, you'll notice that I've been mentioning this series a lot less as of late, and I'd like to say that I was probably the last person on Earth talking about these games to begin with. So basically, they weren't going to get a lot of views, implying that my channel gets much attention to begin with. But yeah, that's kind of the issue of getting into a series whenever it's been on hiatus for the past 8 years and it's part of a niche genre because it's really old and people are really stupid. However, last year we got an absolute explosion of Sam & Max news. Okay, like 2 things, but trust me, in this case, that's some pretty big news. First off was the announcement of a brand new VR game that looks cool, but I'm not terribly interested in at the moment since I don't have any way to play it. The second big piece of news was a remastered version of the very first game in the Sam & Max Telltale trilogy, Sam & Max Save the World. Now you see, the original game was one of Telltale's very first games. It was supposed to be a revival of the It was supposed to be a revival of the whole series after so long with no new games and every other major project getting canned. The people at Telltale always had a special place in their hearts for Sam & Max, formerly being developers of Hit the Road. Late into 2020, a brand new company going by Skunk Ape, or Skunkape, former members of Telltale, announced this brand new overhaul of the 2007 classic. So, I guess history is kind of repeating itself here. A new Sam & Max project developed as the first game of a company made up of people with prior experience with the series. Save the World was originally the return of Sam & Max, so I guess this must be the return of Sam & Max. Now, despite point-and-click adventure games having a severe lack of replay value, I still decided to buy the remake anyways because I'm a moron. I mean, I wanted to see the graphical updates and anything else that was changed. Besides, now's a better time than ever to review this game, so let's get into it. Okay, so originally the games were released episodically, with each season having 5 episodes, 6 for Save the World for some reason. It was kind of a staple for most, if not all, of Telltale's games. Is it dumb? Honestly, yeah, but in the remake, they're all wrapped up into one nice little package with a neat little menu. It's very cool. Oh, by the way, most of this video will just be reviewing the game in general, but I will have a section detailing aspects specific to the remake later on, just as a heads up. Now, the story here isn't anything too grand or whatever. Basically, Sam and Max are bored one day when they suddenly get a call from the commissioner informing them that a bunch of former child stars known as the Soda Poppers are going around causing trouble. Sam and Max soon realize that the Poppers are under some sort of hypnosis caused by a VHS distributed by Brady Culture. He's controlling them and making them promote his VHS to try and get the whole world to worship him. However, after that situation is dealt with, you'll quickly find that that was just the tip of the iceberg, as the duo finds themselves in progressively more ridiculous antics, all tying into the hypnosis conspiracy. We've got TV involved, the toy mafia, the president of the United States, heck, even the freaking internet! You mean to tell me that the internet is trying to manipulate the way I think? No way! But yeah, it never takes itself too seriously, and I love it for that reason. It's just a nice, dumb, wacky story with a funny dog and rabbit. I mean, what's not to love? I'll talk about the individual episodes a little bit later, but for now, let's talk about the gameplay. Alright, so nowadays when you hear the term point and click, it might sound like a first-person shooter or maybe even something else, and while that would be pretty badass, that's not what this game is about. Although I can't say you'll be entirely disappointed. You'll control Sam and interact with and collect objects, talk to people, and solve puzzles in order to make progress. Each episode has its own goal. Typically it involves something basic, and then the second half will be bigger, having you solve a multitude of puzzles in order to finish it. And at the end of it, they'll have one grand puzzle that I guess you could consider a boss fight if you really wanted to. You'll have access to the main street, which I think is called Straight and Narrow, as well as the primary location assigned to each episode. The residents of Straight and Narrow, Sybil and Bosco, will always help out Sam and Max in some way and be involved with a major puzzle. Sybil's constantly changing her profession, showing that she's more indecisive than a mediocre Smash player, and Bosco's always got some overpriced gadget that keeps getting more and more expensive as the game goes on. Speaking of which, let's talk about those puzzles. Now, when this game was originally made, point-and-click games were kinda dying out. At the time, they were infamous for having pretty cryptic puzzles and next to no replay value. Hence why, even to this day, it's still a niche genre. Toto took a step in order to alleviate some of these frustrations. I remember pointing this out in my Hit the Road video, but I'll go ahead and mention it again since it's been so long since then. If you take a look at older point-and-clicks, then you'll notice that there are a lot more ways you can interact with your surroundings, while on a lot of modern ones, you're a lot more limited. It's essentially narrowing down your options to make the game a little bit easier. Personally, I'm completely fine with this change. I mean, some of these interactions do seem pretty ridiculous anyway. Like, yeah, sure, gripping the hot dog will definitely solve the puzzle. What? The point is, oh gosh darn it. Look, basically what I'm trying to say is puzzles have been simplified to a reasonable extent. They aren't easy, but they make a lot more sense. Well, most of the time, anyway. Now, honestly, I love most of the puzzles in this game. The first episode sets off a good first impression. You have to snap all the soda poppers out of their hypnosis by knocking them out. For Wizard, you have to throw one of Bosco's pieces of cheese in his basket so that whenever he goes to retrieve more VHSs, he'll accidentally trigger the shop's security system and get knocked out. There are plenty more like that, but I'd be here all day if I were to name off all of the good ones. They really make you think while not being ridiculous, making you feel really smart when you solve them, and really stupid when you look up a guide. Also, there's some nice variety here too, with some of these puzzles not even requiring items at all, such as driving down the highway and definitely not illegal high-speed chases and shooting wildly, or piecing together setups and punchlines for yo mama jokes. Wow, this game really is old. You know, it kinda disturbs me to think that people were playing the brand new episode of Sam and Max Save the World while I was in kindergarten. Man. With that said, the game isn't perfect whenever it comes to these puzzles. There's always one that's bound to be really dumb. Now, a bad puzzle isn't one that's necessarily too hard, there are just some that don't have any indication as to how they're supposed to be solved. The remake actually adjusted this a little bit. Though, like I said, only a little bit, such as moving the spray can and culture shock to a more obvious spot. I never had an issue with that. But okay, fix that and not Leonard randomly having the D to the United States of America jammed down his throat for literally no reason whatsoever. With that said, I know I've dedicated a lot of this section to the bad puzzles, but don't get the impression that this game has too many of those. A lot of the puzzles here are great. It's just that when a point-and-click game has a bad cryptic puzzle, it always stings really bad, since you can get stuck on it for quite a while, just randomly walking around looking for something you missed. But let's talk about some of those settings. Each episode has quite a variety of areas to visit, such as in WARP TV and its multiple different TV sets being used for the puzzles, or, I don't know, the freaking Oval Office! But it's not really particularly exciting to me anymore. I mean, I've been there so much that the novelty's kind of worn off at this point. The theming of each episode gives you so many fun places to completely ruin, save the world in. And now, my favorite area was Teddy Bear's Mafia Free Playland Casino. There are so many fun puzzles in this episode, some of which involve gambling, and I've always loved casino areas in games. The episodes in general are just really solid across the board. Culture Shock has a lot of good puzzles, situation comedy is pretty decent overall, the mold, mob, and the meatball is my favorite episode in the game despite being so short. Almost all of them are great, though Abe Lincoln Must Die has some backtracking problems near the end that I think were somewhat addressed in the remake, and then there's Reality 2.0. No exaggeration whenever I say this, it's my second least favorite episode in the series, right behind Ice Station Santa. Like, sure, the RPG battles were fun and all, but the puzzles here are either really easy or really cryptic. It never really strikes a good balance. Not to mention, a lot of the music here is just really bad retro remixes of other songs in the game. And they didn't even address the biggest problem with this episode. This is the run killer for the coinless run. You still cannot beat Sam & Max Save the World without touching a single coin. What the frick? Also, there's Bright Side of the Moon, the final episode. While I do like certain things about it, it feels a tad anticlimactic. But it is Sam & Max, so I can cut it a little bit of slack since I don't expect it to be that grand or anything. Just give me something dumb and I'll probably like it. And hey, if there's one thing you can always count on Sam & Max for, it's being really dumb and also being funny. Like, there's a joke at the end of almost every single piece of dialogue, and while they aren't all laugh out loud funny, they still do land most of the time. It helps that the cast is really great. Sam and Max in particular have absolutely perfect voice actors. Max's voice fits his hyperactive and chaotic personality so well, and Sam's, well, he's just not fazed by any of it. Though Max's voice actor for the first episode and the rest of the series is completely different, and to this day it's still kinda jarring. I think it was due to the first voice actor getting sick or something, kind of a shame for him, but in my opinion both VAs are good. I like the second one a little bit better though because he's just too iconic. But I kinda wish that they redid the voice lines in the remake too. Remastered audio such as music and voice acting are like my favorite part of remakes. Still, the voice acting holds up to this day. Sam's voice is great, I love Super Bowl's voice actor, Bosco's is absolutely stellar. Right, Bosco. We'll get back to that later. Anyway, one of the best parts about replaying the game was finding new quotes I had missed out on the first time. My greatest find was this gem at the end of Situation Comedy. And well, it really lives up to the title of the episode.
What are they about? The thing and I the instead of my brother. And to be honest, I regret it.
You mean you wish you'd your own brother?
Yes, I do.
Also, Abe Lincoln Must Die has a lot of political humor in it. 2007 political humor, thank goodness. And while I didn't get a lot of the jokes when I first played the game, I'm a little bit more informed now because nobody will shut up about politics. So yeah, now the episode is a little bit funnier. Max would not last 2 seconds on Twitter without getting suspended. Okay, now we can transition into the presentation, as well as the changes in the remake, since they kinda go hand in hand. The graphics in the original game look pretty good. It's nothing particularly great looking, but it's still visually pleasing, though it certainly does look pretty old. That's the main reason the remake was made, to update these old looking graphics and give them a fresh coat of paint. And it looks a lot better, there's a lot more detail, and the lighting looks great. They even added stuff like new camera angles during the cutscenes and changing how certain areas look at certain parts of the episode. Halfway through Culture Shock, it becomes nighttime, and in Abe Lincoln Must Die, after the soda poppers declare war on each other, the White House goes on lockdown. These are pretty small changes, yes, but I really love them. The big winner of these remastered visuals would have to be Reality 2.0. I mean, I may not like the episode, but man, I was looking forward to getting to this part just to see all the pretty colors, and I was not disappointed at all. And I love the Prismatology Retreat in Bright Side of the Moon. I was not expecting it to look that good. And also, the Hugh Bliss hologram looks so freaking cool. This place in particular is complete night and day whenever you compare it to the original. And when Hugh Bliss switches over to his bacteria form, it now emits a reflective glow, and it's absolutely gorgeous! Although, there is one issue I have specifically with the remake that involves the cutscenes. The inconsistent performance. For whatever reason, some cutscenes and even areas at times chugged like crazy, and it's one of those especially annoying ones where the animation is way behind the audio, so you have to wait an extremely long time for it to catch up. And I really don't get why this is an issue, because not only does this game not require a ton of power, but my PC is pretty strong and has run countless other more demanding games without any problems. Now maybe it was my recording software also running that was causing the problem, I don't know. But I think crap like this is ridiculous. Anyway, moving on to more pleasant stuff, the soundtrack's really good. It's mainly jazz, but It's some pretty damn good jazz. Now, they didn't actually remake any of the songs, which normally I'd have a huge issue with since that's my favorite part about remakes, but I didn't really care for whatever reason. However, I do appreciate that the devs did add in a few new songs, though there aren't many, but they fit the original soundtrack very well. The new opening theme is just as memorable as the original, and I'm glad that they added another song to play at Bosco's. Oh yeah, right, I guess I should tie up that loose end. Okay, so among the changes made in the remake, there was one that raised quite a few eyebrows. Bosco's voice actor got changed. He's the only character in the game with redone voice lines. Now, I don't want to get too deep into this because internet dwellers have a unique skill that allows them to misinterpret what people say in order for them to get offended, but I'm personally against this change. Bosco's new voice actor is decent, and I bet he's happy to have his role. That's good for him, but I'm going to be honest, the old voice actor was way better. This Bosco is a lot more quiet, while the old one portrayed Bosco's insanely paranoid personality beautifully.
It's just you two? Where's the SWAT team? Where's the National Guard? Where's NASA?
It's just you two? Where's the SWAT team? Where's the National Guard? Where's NASA?
And the old voice actor doesn't do all the accents that Bosco does throughout the game quite as well. At the very least, it was the devs' own decision, and they weren't pressured into doing this, but regardless, I'm still not a big fan of this change. And it seems that a lot of other fans aren't either. Also, they changed and outright removed certain lines of dialogue that was deemed offensive and stuff. I mean, I don't know how to feel about that because I'm against a lot of censorship, but at the same time, there's one joke in particular that probably wouldn't fly nowadays. I don't know if changes like this will kill the game for anyone. I mean, that would be kinda petty. I mean, personally speaking, I still had fun, but watch as I transform into the most petty person in the universe for a quick second. These little changes and new issues kinda pile up to make the remake feel impure, for the lack of a better term. Visually, it looks a lot better, the puzzles still hold up to this day, and it's overall a fun, wacky story to watch unfold. But making little changes to the dialogue or changing a voice actor just doesn't feel right to me. Honestly, I'm kinda glad that this wasn't my first exposure to the series. Not saying that this is a bad remake or anything, it serves its job well, but I don't like the idea of tweaking stuff like this. Sure, the point of a remake is to do that, make changes to an old game, but this was marketed mainly as a graphical overhaul and a more convenient way of playing an old PC game. So changes like this, no matter how small, feel wrong. Not referring to the additional visual details, of course, those are great, keep those. But like, I played the original games back in 2018, and I didn't have any problems with this decade-old video game. Still, it doesn't ruin the game, and you're not robbing yourself out of a better experience by not playing the originals instead. I just wanted to talk about why stuff like this bothers me. Though apparently in the future, they're going to give away the original episodes as free DLC for anyone who owns the remake on Steam. That's pretty freaking epic. Still, I'd just like to say that if they do remake seasons 2 and 3 as well, which I'm pretty sure they will, that they don't go too trigger happy with censorship. Besides, in season 2, there's literally a joke making fun of that. Alright, so this is going to be like a last minute thing that I add into the video. I don't have a script ready or anything, but I did some digging on the censorship stuff, and it's pretty sketchy. Apparently, Skunk Ape said that they weren't going to change the dialogue, and as you can tell, that's an outright lie. Like on their FAQ, they try to deflect this criticism, and they literally do the yes but actually no meme in real life. Like, how? I'm gonna be completely honest, Bosco's voice change is small potatoes compared to this, because at least they didn't lie about that. If they were just more transparent and honest about this, then I could recommend this remaster more to old fans of the games, but now I can't. For newcomers, I feel like it's still good, but for longtime fans, no. This feels really dirty, and I hope they don't do this for seasons 2 and 3. Man, I really hate talking about this stuff. Way to ruin my Sam & Max. But man, I don't want to talk about cringe stuff like that. I want to have my stupid fun with Sam & Max. Like, no matter what, I'll always think that Sam & Max Save the World will hold up as a great point-and-click adventure game. Sure, even though the remake has some minor stuff that I don't like, I'm still glad it exists because it ensures that more people can get into the games and spread more awareness. games. We'll get to seasons 2 and 3 when we get to them. I can't wait till the remake of The Devil's Playhouse. Trust me, that'll be a huge video. But for the time being, I'm Luggo the Luggician, and thank you very much for watching.